saying the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could kindly join with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin by reviewing the draft minutes of our regular meeting in January 24th, 2022. And just for clarification, I'd just like to make a notation on page 2, line 3, the last word, light poles. And again, just to clarify, we'll usually refer to them as utility poles. And then again, the same clarification on page 3, line 16. It reads the number of light poles, and then for clarification, utility poles. Noting that addition, I make a motion to approve the draft minutes. Would a member second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approved with that amendment. I'd like to introduce our newest member, the Brunswick Zoning Board of Appeals, Daryl Lockrow. Welcome, Daryl. Thank you for joining on. We'll review tonight's agenda. First applicant, Changing Visions of Energy, CVE of North America, seeking area variances. Properties located on Bel Air Lane and North Lake Avenue. Second, Atlas Renewables LLC with properties on Shippey Lane and Brunswick Road, seeking a use variance and area variances. Then go to Harbor Freight and again, Atlas Renewables for another solar facility application. So we'll begin tonight now with Changing Visions of Energy. I'd like to come, the applicant, welcome. Nice to have you here tonight. You can kindly present overview of your project and what you're seeking.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jared Lusk with the law firm of Nixon Peabody, representing CVE for short. This application has been pending since May of 2021. It's gone through a number of procedural steps to get where we are. We first appeared before the town board for an informational meeting, then several appearances before the planning board to make a recommendation. The application is for a 4 megawatt or so project to be constructed on approximately 68 acres of land, again, off Bel Air Lane. The original request, the project is proposed to occur on 3 separate tax parcels. One project on 3 separate tax parcels. And a portion of one parcel and an entirety of another parcel were not inside the ag overlay district. If you recall, the projects are solar projects are approved in the agricultural overlay district. So at its last meeting on February 17th, in sum, the town board adopted a negative declaration for the project and approved a rezoning of the project site, including the access drive and the project, the area encompassing the project that was not zoned ag overlay to ag overlay, not the entirety of the one tax parcel, only that portion of the property where there would be the solar facility. So again, negative declaration for purposes of seeker is complete, and I'll call it the rezoning is complete. So again, as outlined in our original May 6th application, again in our December 14th, 2021 supplemental application, CVE seeks a couple of area variances. First, the code requires a 100-foot setback from lot lines. Since we have 3 since the project site is encompassed with 3 parcels and the project extends over each of those 3 parcels or a portion of each of those 3 parcels, in essence, we have a 0-foot setback in between those parcels. And so we're requesting an area variance to accommodate the large project as contemplated, as approved by the town board, and as contemplated in the neg deck to be permitted. Again, so a 0-foot setback between those property parcel boundaries. Secondly, and as outlined in our December 14th supplemental application materials, the code requires, the Brunswick Town Code, Section 160, 49C5 requires that all of the utility infrastructure serving the solar facility be underground. I know this is not the first time that you've seen this issue, but we need, as part of the interconnection between the project and the utility, National Grid, we're required to use 6 poles above ground as part of their interconnection design standards. So again, the entirety of the project is underground as required, except the area in the vicinity of the interconnect, which again, National Grid requires that the poles be above ground. And I provided that as tab, proof of that design requirement as tab L to our application materials dated December 14th. So again, 0-foot setback in between the tax parcels that make up the larger project site, and the 6 above ground utility poles that would be in technical non-compliance with 160-49C5. Those are the requested variances. In the application material, we've identified, we provided information regarding the area variance standards and why we think we meet them. I won't take the time to repeat them now for you because they're in writing in the application materials. But with that, should I sit down or should I stand for questions that you might have for me?
Please stay with us.
All
Yeah,
right.
stand for questions. Thank you. So if you just want to update us a little bit on how we would go logistically forward.
Sure.
Um,
So one of the things for the board to consider is procedure. So as Jared explained, the town board did serve as secret lead agency and did adopt a negative declaration on the 17th. Ron's office, LaBerge Group, did provide consulting engineering services for the town board. So seeker's been completed on the entire action. There was a coordinated review, so seeker is completed for all of the involved agencies, including this board. So seeker is completed for the project. After the board acted on the 17th, the applicant was in front of the planning board. There's a special use permit and site plan requirement for the project. And then in front of this board, the 2 variances that Jared just reviewed. One thing for this board to consider is that the zoning law does promote, where possible, coordination of proceedings between the boards where multiple approvals are required. And what this board has considered in the past in these projects is to coordinate with the planning board for purposes of holding a joint public hearing. There is a public hearing mandatory for the special use permit, while discretionary on site plans in front of the planning board, given that a special use permit public hearing is mandatory. The planning board has held the public hearing on both the site plan and the special use permit. The area variances do require a mandatory public hearing in front of this board. So one of the things for the board to consider procedurally is whether you'd consider a joint public hearing with the planning board. The planning board is not in a position yet to have deemed the application complete for purposes of scheduling its public hearing. That's going to be further discussed, I believe, this week at the planning board. I know the planning board review engineer, Wayne Bonesteel, is working on his review letter, and we'll be getting that to the applicant shortly. So there really is, aside from any questions the board may have on the area variances sought, procedurally, there's nothing further to consider tonight. I would recommend that the application be deemed complete by the planning board and then consider dates for what I would recommend, a joint public hearing with the planning board and the zoning board. Those have generally been held at planning board meetings, given that those happen 2 times a month. And what happens is we'll schedule, if acceptable to the board, a special meeting of this board for purposes of conducting a joint public hearing. So procedurally, in conjunction with what Jared has presented to you, that's kind of where we are procedurally. And if you have any substantive questions of the applicant, it would be appropriate at this point.
Thank you. Thanks for that overview. Yeah, I do. So Brunswick has seen a lot of solar facilities recently. And the question of utility poles and the number have been front and center because of the variance that's required. So we have seen applications proposing numbers as low as 2 up to 6. So I'm going to ask you, why 6?
You know, I wish I could provide that detail to you other than the design of I think the design of the plan. I mean, in terms of the public hearing, we'll have the engineer here to answer that particular question. I don't really have the technical reason. I believe it's technical in nature from an engineering perspective. CVE in general doesn't care whether there's 2 or 6. I think they just want to build the design that's necessary. So if we can, maybe if there's a way we could minimize from 6 down to 2 even, as you described, it would be great. But certainly I'll have that answer for you in time for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do you know where your interconnects are physically going to be? Coming out on Bellware's lane side and you got 3-phase there, or?
It would be in the plans itself. I'm not the engineer, and the engineer isn't here because I was under the understanding that it would be mostly preliminary in terms of scheduling tonight. But again, we'll have the engineer here in time for the public hearing to answer that question. It's in the plans. However, that's where the poles are listed, are shown.
Yeah, we haven't received the plan set yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. You certainly sent some in. Maybe it didn't get to you. Would you like, how many plan sets would you like? I'm surprised to hear you don't have them because I know we sent some in.
You did? All right. Let me see, maybe they all got filtered out to the planning board. I'm not aware of anybody on this board seeing any plan sets yet. So,
I apologize. They certainly attached, it is tab G to this application. Do you all have this?
Not the first letters.
What's the date of that one, Jared?
This is May 6th,
Yeah.
2021, and then this is December 14th.
Yeah,
December
those are
14th. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jared. Those are the 2 key documents. There was a submittal May 6th, 2021 with tabs A through K. And within there are the plan sets on what appear to be 11 by 17.
Yeah, tab G of that. Tab G of the May 21st submittal is,
And then there's a subsequent submittal that the applicant made in December of 2021 that has some additional.
the only purpose of the supplemental application was to add the second overhead utility pole
Variance.
variance to that. There aren't revised plans. There's a revised EAF that adds the second plan. Again, we updated our written responses to the area variance standard and the area variance application form. So in terms of the plans, they should be tab G of the original application is the plan that hasn't changed.
So perhaps you can coordinate with the building department and have that distributed to the members.
Okay, do you not have these even?
I do not. So,
Okay,
uh,
how many, how many copies did we need to send?
3, 4, 5
5 and 6?
for our building department.
We'll get those sent. I'm shocked that you don't have them, but we'll make sure we get copies. Would it be easier to send it digitally? Rather than
And
say,
So at some point, we would like them in hard copy. So
Okay.
if you want to send them digitally to the building department first.
Okay, we'll
we
send
would
hard
have them in
copies then.
Please. Yeah, thank you.
all right, why 6 poles was the question?
Location of that interconnection.
Yes.
So we're unable to then deem that this application is complete because we're missing information.
That's,
Could that be done before we meet again, or is that something that we need to wait? And then we have to set a date later,
we have to set a date later, dependent on the planning board's engineering review comments. As I said, they're meeting this Thursday. They'll again meet, if I do my reckoning correctly, if this Thursday is the 3rd, 10th, on the 17th. Certainly, you could then have a chance to review these documents and deem this application complete at your March meeting with an eye toward probably an April public hearing.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
that does. So, again, so just repeat, you were speaking, I wasn't able to follow. So do you want me back here then in the March ZBA meeting? Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the date, just to confirm that? 21st? Okay.
And it would probably, Jared, make sense to bring your engineer along in case the board has any substantive questions that they want answered so that the application can be deemed complete.
Okay. All right. And, Andy,
Yes.
I'm just a little surprised that you guys don't have copies, because when we submitted this thing on May 6th, we sent 27 copies of the application package. Before I kill some more trees, can somebody please?
We'll take a look and see where it is. I mean, isn't that it was last year?
Yeah, it was May of last year, yes.
Yeah.
And we
It
sent
may have
December.
May have been put into the archives just because of the delay in the project. I'll have to look for that. So don't make any more prints, Jared, until I get back to you.
Okay,
All right? It may be just a problem in our distribution.
all right, and I definitely made 27 more copies for December, so our December submission. So if we can save a few more trees, certainly that we probably in the best interest of that.
So the first on May 6th and the second was just December.
December 14th?
14th.
Yes.
I believe we are in receipt of that.
Okay. All right, it's the May one.
Right.
All right.
And if it's, I can just also digitally send you plans if that's helpful too. Whatever is easiest.
These guys like hard copy.
Yeah.
Mark them up.
The planning board.
You done with me then?
Oh, yes, thank you very much. Well, just, we do recycle our paper, so
Okay.
it's, you're fearing the trees and all. When we're done with it, we do recycle the paper.
3/21 at 6 PM again?
Yes,
All right, we will see you then.
thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you, appreciate it.
See you then.
So, and that'll be a tentative April joint meeting?
Yes. Right.
One of the two
Dates being
April.
determined.
Okay.
Which I won't be here.
Well, the other two meetings in April.
Right.
for the Planning board, so
So,
2 weeks apart.
right, so the beginning and then,
They normally do what, the second and the fourth?
right,
Yeah.
For the deed. It's the second.
right, that's when you're, so maybe we had it earlier. Yeah.
Because they submit on file rates. If I remember correctly.
I may have that.
No.
I may have
Sense of that.
Me too. Now that you said it.
I'm gonna go home
Oh,
and
yeah,
look
yeah.
at email Chuck.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised they weren't distributed already. They could have been. It's a while.
Patricia's thing.
You need to get this.
The local law book.
I know I have mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
I did the town board stuff on the zone change, so I have
Yeah,
all
you're-
that,
you're
but we gotta
set.
make sure.
right, everybody else. is-
I'm gonna go home and check.
Okay. All right, next up, we have Atlas Renewables. And, let's see. Hi, how are you? Good evening.
These two together, I think would be, This is what we're looking to do to.
Duran, yes, yep.
Yeah,
Good
hi,
evening.
welcome. So
Thank you.
since our last meeting,
Mhm.
I believe you have some information for us that was requested
This
at
is
the
correct.
January meeting.
This is correct. I'm flexible how you want to proceed. What I mean is that LaBerge Group produced a letter by January 20. This is our reply. Apologies, it was not intended to produce a 70 pages reply, but there are some exhibits. I mean, it's less, it's more digestible than it looks like. LaBerge Group produced another comment by Thursday last week. If you want first LaBerge Group to explain those maps and then me to jump and in one way to explain the January 20th plus our comments to the maps from LaBerge Group, we are flexible. If we consider that we start first with the January 20 and then Mr. LaBerge explain the maps and then we comment on the maps, we are okay as well.
Right, well, maybe we could do that. Maybe we could start with Mr. LaBerge.
Okay.
From the LaBerge Group, he's our technical consultant to the zoning board on this application. And you have provided maps that were requested at our January meeting. So thank you for that information.
Be okay here with a microphone? I can talk loud.
I can hear you fine. Difficulties?
I hate to do this, but can you grab that,
Yeah, sure.
just so it can get recorded?
Flying under the radar. So anyway, good evening, everybody. So at the last meeting, the zoning board requested that we kind of prepare a map showing areas in the town where these solar arrays can be constructed. So we went in and we looked at it kind of two different ways. Your typical solar array needs like at least 30 acres of property. And so if you look at the bottom of the map in the title block down there, there's one map that says 30 plus. And so the parcels shown in yellow and are basically the available vacant parcels that solar arrays are allowed to be constructed on the town. The cover letter gets into all the different property codes and everything else, but in general, it's where they're allowed. But the map also then does go a little further. It shows where wetlands are. It shows, the pink areas are steep slopes. So, even though these things can be built on slopes, there are limits to it. So any place you see, just plain old yellow is basically an unrestricted construction location. And so when you look at these 30-acre parcels, I forgot how many acres it was. Altogether, there was about 14,500 acres in the town. I did not back out the areas with the slopes and the wetlands, but estimating that even if it's half, you still have 7,000 acres or so of property. The other map we did was basically looking at all parcel sizes, because obviously you could put parcels together similar to the last project that was just discussed here. And so that's what this map represents. So there's obviously more area available. And that I think was 16,000 acres of property. Roughly 16,300. I do have to apologize. I don't know.
60 or
16,300 acres of property. Again, some of that's impeded by wetlands. There might be some steep slopes that you really can't build on. If you wanted to cut it in half, there's 8,000 acres. So that half is really just a ballpark estimate. I do apologize though, because the substation locations were supposed to be shown on this map with red dots, and for some reason, they're not printed on there. Right. So, there were some substations out in the western part of town. Obviously, we know here by the proposed site. But anyway, I think that the main thrust was to show. Does yours show them on there, Andy?
This is what you sent me. Try it.
Oh, excellent. See, we sent you the right one. So thank you.
Yep.
Yes. Well, it's going to be a little bit difficult to do, but there is, just to give you an idea where some of the substations are, there's one in that area there. There's one, obviously I mentioned there's one here already. There's another one in this location. And then there's a couple over in the western part of town. So they're kind of, there are, spread throughout I'm going to call it the lower, the southern half of the town more than anything. There is one out by the boundary with Grafton too, by the way. So up in this neck of the woods here. So I apologize for that. And I will resend those to you.
Thank you.
It's never fun to come to a meeting with the wrong map. But I think the intent was and I think the intent of the planning board is to show, okay, where can this go? The applicant has already indicated there's restrictions as far as on their end in terms of distance they have to go or the capability of a substation to accept additional power to it. But this just gives you an idea of if you could put it anywhere, these are all the areas you can do it.
So just to clarify, these yellow parcels are they're suitable. Are they zoned?
They're zoned. Actually, they're zoned correctly. So we said, okay, these are all the parcels that are zoned correctly to have this type of facility on it. So those are the yellow parcels. When they say suitable, they, again, we didn't do an evaluation. Just by zoning, they're suitable.
Do any of the members have any questions for Mr. LaBerge regarding the maps?
I know we had a few of them, but at one time we did have a map that had some transmission lines on it. I couldn't remember if that was from Mr. LaBerge or if that came from one of the other.
That was, I believe, in the application from the applicant. They did present some of that information.
The red dot, showing like substations. So ultimately you'll get this.
Right. That's shown on the application.
So some of the picture.
Here in orange.
Got it. We'll get there.
Fortunately, again, apologies.
No problem, no, happy for it.
You read this stuff sometimes. I don't even know what I'm looking at because I can't see it.
I don't believe there are any questions at this time, but maybe if something comes up, would you like to stay through the meeting? or-
Oh, absolutely. Not a problem.
Okay,
That's what I'm here for.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You see your maps going over the dots.
Preparing for our program on this second part.
Okay.
So I'm making this what probably Mr. Cornelius was asked before. We can review it now or we can review it later. This one for Mr. Leverage. Again, apologies for the 70 pages. It was not our intention to make an extension answer, but maybe it was necessary some exhibits, some clarifications on the economic sense, on the what is national grid reply, of what is different substations and feeder lines. Basically, my intention today is, I think there are two critical ideas that we need to discuss. One is, hey, why this substation? Because there are plenty of substations in the state of New York. Why this substation? And second, why these parcels? There are plenty of parcels. Why these parcels? This is the two ideas that I would like today to discuss. Basically, this is what the Rosenberg law is dealing about, that because of economic restrictions, not all the substations are available, not all the parcels are feasible, and that's why we had to concentrate on these specific parcels. I don't know how the board prefers to go question by question and review our comments, or you want to focus on some specific exhibits. I mean, in some point of time, I would like to show through the computer, hopefully in a high resolution. I acknowledge that when we are talking about these maps and these feeder lines, and sometimes it's difficult, and when it's not clear which feeder line or which substation we are talking, it's complicated to understand. So I would like to project some pictures in the next minutes when necessary, but again, very open to proceed how you want in this discussion. If it's okay, we can go from section 1, section 2, section 3, and we can review our comments. If you have any question, I can try to provide an answer, or up to you.
That seems like a good proposal.
Well, maybe. What I am concerned about, Luis, is that I'm not sure the board members have even had a chance to see it,
Yeah.
read it,
Yeah,
understand it.
yeah.
And I know our review engineer has not as well. So you can proceed, certainly, but in terms of questions, things like that, I'm not sure the board's prepared for that because they're just getting it tonight.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
not expecting, I'm not expecting that the board has had the chance to review. I'm not expecting that the board has even had the time to digest and propose some questions. No. Today for me is a good opportunity to try to explain what is the rationale behind our solar projects. Again, from October 2021, when we presented these projects, we submitted a lot of documentation and very specific, based on the Rosenberg law, why we were selecting these projects. We were explaining that there are some restrictions on the feeder lines of the substations. Now these maps are showing these restrictions. Now our maps to Mr. LaBerge Group is showing those restrictions. So I acknowledge that this is complicated. This is a complex project, and I'm not expecting that today it will be the information digested. Again, maybe if today, I would be happy if today we can discuss a little bit, hey, there are plenty of substations in the state of New York. Yes, in our reply on section 6A, according to our numbers, there are 800 substations, distribution substations in the state of New York. Up and down. To 795. But why this Sikaway substation? And the second question: hey, there are 16,000 acres. Why you have selected this? Well, again, from economic point of view, let me try to put an example. If instead of a solar project we were discussing a hydro project, then for a hydro project, I need water. If I don't have water because there is no river, the project will not be feasibly economic. Of course, I can make my hydro project 2 miles away for the river. I channel the water. But from economic point of view, it will not be feasible. Something similar is what we are trying to explain with this map in reply to LaBerge Group map. If there is no feeder line, then the project will not be economically feasible. If the parcel is not in connection to a national grid feeder line, yes, theoretically, it's possible to do this project, but the cost will be prohibitive. We have some documentation with National Grid describing the cost upgrading the existing feeder lines from National Grid. If we have to build from zero, even it's more cost prohibitive. And we have put here some examples, some business models from NYSERDA, not our business model. We want to avoid the discussions. Hey, you are using your numbers. Of course that this is the negative result. No. We are using NYSERDA business models for a solar plant, and we are proving that if we increase the cost with 1 mile, which is $1 million, the project has a negative present value. Negative present value. So it's not my opinion. It's not like, it was a good point from Laverge Group. That what does it mean, unfeasible economic? That instead of this hike return, you will get less return? No. With 1 mile, it's negative present value. This is what it's part of this documentation. And if you allow me, we can go point by point and we can review quickly, especially on those areas that is of your interest, all our comments to this Laverge Group letter.
I haven't even read it yet.
So point by point, in the information that you gave us, you're speaking about the way that it was laid out in pages 1 through 9.
1 to 9, correct, yes. Or what we can do, I can explain what I think are the critical points within this booklet, and in the next zoning board, we can go into more detail, up to the board members. Up to the board members.
All right, so I don't know if anyone has an opinion. We can go through it point by point or hear the critical points.
I just want to know if he received the map from Mr. Laverge, because if he was to overlay his information with the feeder lines on Mr. Laverge map, we could definitely see them a little more clearly to discount the areas that he's talking about.
So is that something you'd like to have?
Yeah, it might be a little bit easier to explain that if we could review that and see it. Okay.
Just to address that one comment, I believe the applicant handed out this map to them.
Yes.
What that is, our map with the lines overlaid, correct?
Correct. We have overlaid on top of Laverge Group map.
Okay.
The feeder lines for National Grid. We have not created anything new, anything different. We have just overlapped on the Laverge Group map the feeder lines. Why we have done this? Well, because it's critical to have connection to the feeder lines. If there is no feeder line, then the project is not feasible. Similar to the example that I tried to put, if you want to produce hydropower plant, you need to be in contact with the river. If there is no river, there is no water, the turbine will not produce electricity. That's the rationale behind this overlay on the Laverge Group map. Yes, Mr. Laverge is 100% correct. All these parcels are qualified for solar. But under the Rosenberg law, when we review these parcels, which parcels from economic point of view make sense, 99% of these parcels doesn't make sense from economic point of view.
Sharon?
For you to.
You want to just bring it up in the air? Or maybe I can. Get plenty of stuff to do that.
Probably just have to pull the table back.
CBE application.
Yeah.
Let's see, get a little better. I'm old.
So what we have done is taking into account the Mr. LaBerge Group map. We have overlapped the substations, blue color, and the feeder lines in the exact colors that National Grid is providing. Our comment is that, for instance, this is a red feeder line. All these parcels has no direct contact with this feeder line. All these parcels has no direct contact with this feeder line. Therefore, similar to a hydropower plant that needs to be in contact with a river, these parcels are, yes, properly zoned for solar, but from economic point of view, never will be a solar project. Never a solar project will be feasible economically here. This is our direct comment. Our second comment is that you can see that there are different colors of the National Grid feeder lines. We have part of the documentation, exhibit E, if I'm not wrong, it's the correspondence between us and National Grid discussing a project in the town of Onondaga where we wanted to connect to a red color feeder line. The reply of Mr. Richard Fifield, the gentleman from National Grid, was that yes, of course we can do that, but the cost is $1 million per mile. If we have to upgrade 1 mile, we have to pay $1 million. Imagine that we want to connect here. This is a valid parcel, but we have to upgrade all this portion. I don't know if this is 20 miles or 25 miles. This would be 25 million, completely unfeasible. Similar to that parcel, which is close to this substation, but it's in contact with the feeder line. Yes, but it's a blue feeder line. Being that the case, a red feeder line. Being that the case, again, we have to upgrade the National Grid feeder line, and this is $1 million per mile. One of the questions of Mr. Mainello, and we try to provide by November 15 an answer is that, hey, what about Tamarack project? Tamarack project is connected here, and it's connected to apparently a red feeder line. And probably, if I'm not wrong, Borrego project is also connecting here, which is a red feeder line. By November 15th, what we replied to the board is that, be careful, this line, which departs from a substation, it's not a real red line. The capacity of this is 0, and it's obvious that there is no feeder line that the capacity is 0. What happens is that National Grid considers that this capacity without an additional equipment has no capacity, but installing this additional equipment, which is not highly costly, so it's possible, this line has capacity. You will see that most of the feeder lines departing from a substation, not by chance, are blue color. Why this one is red color? Well, because it has capacity, but it's missing an equipment. We provided this answer by November 15. So it's part of a, if you don't have this documentation, I can provide copies. So back to your question, Mr. Mainello. Yes, Tamark project is connected to a red feeder line, but it's an upper-end red feeder line. Borrego project is connected to a red feeder line, but it's an upper-end red feeder line. This portion is the upper-end feeder line. And you can see in our reply by November 15th that this portion, the capacity is 0 on national grid maps. 0, it's impossible. There is some capacity. If there is a feeder line, there is capacity. Here the capacity is 0.24. Here the capacity is 0.3. Here the capacity is, if I'm not wrong, 0.01. So for those cases that the capacity is 0, the problem is not the capacity. The problem is that it's an additional equipment, which again, it's not costly, and that's why Tamarack project can move forward. Tamarack project has probably other problems with equipment at this moment, but it's still a feasible project in our view. So basically, our contention is that, yes, there is plenty of land, but all those lands which are not connected to a feeder line are economically unfeasible. And all those parcels connected to a red feeder line, the result is the same. We'll see later on the Exhibit F, where we have done some business cases, and the result is a negative net present value. So at the end of the day, which are those lands which are feasible for solar? The ones which are close to a blue feeder line. The ones which are close to a blue feeder line, and unfortunately, not by chance, we will see later on Exhibit D, where are located most of the distribution substations in the state of New York. Not by chance, these blue feeder lines and these substations are close to urban areas, There was one question, one comment from Mr. Laber's group, which is true. I mean, hey, why you don't go there? Here the price of the land is much cheaper. You can find land cheaper than here. Yes, of course. But here, the interconnection is prohibitive. Then, okay, I mean, vice versa. Why you don't go here? Because in the middle of the town, the price of the cost is prohibitive. I cannot do in Manhattan 30 acres. Well, not only Manhattan, in Albany, in Buffalo, in Syracuse, I cannot, in the middle of the city, get 30 acres at a reasonable price. We are here not discussing if these lands are good or not good, or properly zoned or not properly zoned. That's not our point. Our point is that considering the Rosenberg law rational, if we have to proceed with a solar farm under economic terms, only few cases make sense. In our initial comment by October 2021, these are not the only 2 parcels that qualifies for solar. There are other adjacent parcels which would also, from economic point of view, make sense. And we contact those landowners, and the answer was no. They are not interested. No, they don't want to sell. Or no, yes, we want to sell at this super high price. So again, I mean, it is not our discussion if these are qualified or not for solar. Our point is that from an economic point of view, it does not make sense. I would like to jump, if possible, to Exhibit D, E, and F.
Luis, I just have one question for you.
Go ahead.
So I'm not an electrician. So when you talk about the capacity of the feeder lines, I don't want to beat this to death, but the colors on the map represent, like, say, for example, you got the 2 parcels of either the Brunswick or the Sickaway Solar Farm. And in the application, or at least they talk about, one is 4.6 megawatts, one is 5 megawatts. So it looks like one of them will be attached to like a lighter blue color line, from what I'm reading on here, and the other one will be probably attached to the darker blue line.
Oh, well, you are correct.
Okay.
The-
But the color of the lines over here on hosting capacity doesn't meet that, what you're putting out. So is that what you're talking about? Is that other additional equipment?
No, here there are two feeder lines. Here, there are 2 feeder lines. And we are connecting Brunswick to one of them and Sickaway to the other one. So if you it's probably in one of my documentation that National Grid names each of the feeder line with a code 36, 31, 2020, 21, something like that. So if you review Seekaway, we are connecting to one feeder line, and Brunswick, we are connecting to the other feeder line. These two feeder lines are joining. One of these, it's coming from here and going into the substation, and the other one is coming from here and going into the substation. It looks like that, oh, there is only one feeder line. No, it's two. It's two. I can provide you if necessary, if you
No,
want.
I'm just asking
No,
the
no, no.
numbers, that's all, because like I said, if you're proposing a 4.6 megawatt plant, but the feeder line says it's only rated at 2.6, how does that work?
Correct. No, correct. So just one comment. This is above 5 megawatt. Usually in our conversations, and we have had numerous conversations with National Grid, what they acknowledge is that usually a blue feeder line is up to 10 megawatt, up to 10 megawatt. You cannot install 11, 12. So, oh, okay, I will install 3 projects, 5 megawatt, 5 megawatt, 5 megawatt. No. At this voltage level, the voltage level is 13.2 kilovolts. And if you do some math from electrical point of view, these lines cannot support more than 10 megawatt. Okay, so this on the blue feeder lines. Then there is another restriction, the substation. Please think about a substation like a tank, a water tank, and think about the different lines as the pipes connecting water, pouring water, or taking water from the tank. Okay, one restriction is the feeder line, the capacity of the feeder line, 10 megawatt per feeder line. Okay, but then the second restriction is the tank. The tank doesn't mean that if it's connected by 3 feeder lines, the tank will have 10 plus 10 plus 10. No, it depends from different reasons. So if this tank has only 10 megawatt capacity, and in one of the feeder lines, there are 2 solar projects, 5 plus 5, all the capacity of the substation, and therefore all the capacity of all the rest of the feeder lines are gone. If this tank cannot accept more water, doesn't matter that you have 20 connections. No, the tank is a limitation. So one of our comments to LaBerge letter is that, yes, apparently it looks like, oh, but I don't remember if this is this feeder line or this feeder line that, oh, here is a 9 megawatt capacity and only 0.8 megawatt on the queue. Yes, but you have to look at the tank. You have to look at the substation. The substation, instead of water capacity, has what is called thermal capacity. And at the end of the day, it's similar to how much water you can pour into the substation. I would like to jump 1 second to the exhibit D, E, and F, because when the board has the time to review in a little bit in more detail, I would like to explain what we are trying to do. On exhibit D, what we are representing is some screenshots from National Grid, NYSEG, Con Edison, and Central Hudson. We are not taking into consideration Long Island. So on all the New York state, there are these 5 utilities. We're not considering Long Island because of some specificities. It's very different, but the results are the same. This is a screenshot from the National Grid distribution substations hosting capacity map. And this is representing with blue squares where the locations of the substations, again, distribution substations are. This is Albany, Troy is around here, So you can see that all the substations, not the majority of the substations, not by chance, are located where the population is. Yes, there are some other substations where are in rural areas, true, but most of the substations are located within the centers of the Albany region. We can move to the next slide, and instead of Albany, we will analyze Syracuse. And something very similar happens around Syracuse area, within the city of Syracuse. It's where most of the substations are located. Yes, there are other substations, but most of the substations are located within the urban areas. The next one is Buffalo, and the same results. You can see a high concentration of substations within the Buffalo area. Yes, there are other substations, but a minority. We can do this exercise for this is NYSEG, this is Con Edison, this is Central Hudson. The rationale is the same. The substations are located very much in the urban areas. Why I'm explaining this? Okay, the point is that the state of New York has determined that they want 70% renewable energy by 2030. 70% renewable energy, 70% renewable energy by 2030. Okay? That's great. This is in 8 years. And in 8 years, you cannot change dramatically the infrastructure. First, because all these substations are located here, because there is a need. There is a requirement of electricity in this specific area and not here in the middle. So our point is that to reach that goal of 70% renewable energy, every corner of the state will be requested to contribute where possible. And in the middle of the cities, it is literally impossible to find 30 acres, even not only at a decent price, not only even at a high price, even it's not possible to find 30 acres in the middle of the towns. So our point is that substations like Sikaway, where are not in the middle of an urban area, will be requested to contribute. This is our point. Why this Exhibit D? What this Exhibit D tries to do is that the targets are very ambitious. The infrastructure is very specific where it's located. And to try to reach that point, substations similar to Sikaway will be reclaimed to try to contribute on that 70% goal. I will go 1 second to Exhibit E. One of the points of Mr. Laberge's group, and it's a good point, is that, okay, from an economic point of view, what do you mean that a solar project is not feasible? Because you want a very high return, and if you connect to another parcel, another location, it will be low return. Okay, to try to reply to this question, which is a very valid question, we try to reply with 2 exhibits. Exhibit number D and exhibit number E and exhibit number F. Exhibit number E, is the correspondence between us and National Grid for a different project, Onondaga project. It was located in the city of Onondaga. And we were trying to connect to a red feeder line. It's part of the explanation in the emails. Usually how it works, we make an application to National Grid provides an answer, then we ask for a meeting. In that meeting, we discuss the details, and then we decide to move forward, yes or no. Okay, the correspondence is that by when Mr. Richard Fifield in July 20, 2020, invited us to a meeting, in that meeting for that specific project in Onondaga, where we were proposing to connect to a red feeder line of 0.03 megawatt capacity, he explained to us that, yes, you can go ahead, but you will have to upgrade all the red feeder line. He proposed that it was, as a rule of thumb, 1 million per mile. We put it in writing. We asked National Grid that, hey, is our understanding correct? Maybe we missed something and this 1 million per mile is incorrect. He confirmed that, yes, that's correct. That's Exhibit E. We are using this documentation, this Exhibit E, for the next exhibit, Exhibit F. Where we are trying to put in numbers, which will be the impact on a solar project if we have to upgrade 1 mile of feeder line. Again, we are not using our business model. We are using NYSERDA business model. Maybe the board is familiar with this business model. This is the calculation of the pilot agreement. So when we try to determine what is the pilot agreement that a solar project can pay, it is recommended to use this NYSERDA model. And what we have done is that for Brunswick and Seekaway, we have modeled, again, based on the assumptions of NYSERDA. It's not my business model. It's not my business model. It's NYSERDA business model. I try to remark this because it may be suspicious that if I'm using my business model, yeah, okay, you have tricked here, there, and the numbers are as you want. No. It's NYSERDA business model. For Brunswick, we have keep all the NYSERDA assumptions. We remark this row because this is the cost of the system, and the negative and the results are positive. So this project would have a positive net present value, considering that we do not have to upgrade 1 mile of National Grid feeder line. Now, with exactly the same project, but with a fictitious case that it's Brunswick, it's exactly the same, but let's imagine that I have to upgrade 1 mile of feeder line for Brunswick. The rest of the assumptions are exactly the same. The only thing I'm changing is this row where the cost of the system, it's higher because it's the impact of $1 million in excess divided by the capacity of this feeder line. The result is that the project has a negative net present value. The project has a negative net present value. This is for Brunswick. For Seekaway, we have repeated exactly the same rationale. We have taken NYSERDA model with these assumptions from NYSERDA, not from us. We have modeled Seekaway solar farm, and we have remarked here this row in green, because this is the only row that changes from Seekaway with and Seekaway without, or Brunswick with or Brunswick without. So this is the cost of the system. The project has a positive net present value. Now, in Seekaway, we assume, hypothetically, that's not the case, but hypothetically, we assume that we need to increase 1 mile. I'm not considering 2, 3, 5, no, 1 mile of the National Grid feeder line. This cost, the system cost, of course, it's higher. The result is a negative net present value. These are the things that probably make more sense for me to explain prior to the board to have the chance to review in more detail, because probably this is the most dense part. Again, I was not expecting today to the board to have review it, not at all. Probably it will be maybe the next meeting or the following meeting. Happy to address those questions.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Exhibit E, I believe. The letter from National Grid. E, great. The correspondence. So I see your letter where you mentioned the rule of thumb. I don't see it in the letter from National Grid.
It's on top. Because it's a chain of emails.
Right, I understand,
So-
right, I understand that, so where is it? Which
It's just
one
this
is it?
little blurb. That's all it is. He just says, yes, that's correct.
Aha.
National Grid is
Yeah.
not very explicit.
Okay.
They will not say,
Oh.
yes, of course, you're.
Okay,
It's just, yes, you're right.
okay,
That's-
I
that's-
I
that's
missed
what
it.
he
No, no, no.
Thank you, John, thank you.
Yeah, it took me a while to find that. too. The only other question I had was, what is the cost per acre for purchase or lease or, and does that come into your consideration?
Absolutely, yes. Lease and purchase. What in our models we can pay lease $1,000 per acre per year, approximately. Again, it depends on many factors. If it's flat land and we can do one-axis tracker, we can do other things. If we have projects that we are paying $800, $500 per acre per year, and if we buy land up to $10,000 per acre per year, $10,000 per acre, it's the price that we can pay. Again, we have projects at $2,000, $4,000, $8,000, $10,000. Above $10,000 per acre, the model starts crunching. Above $1,000 per acre per year as a land lease, the model starts suffering. This is our experience. It depends on many things. It depends on the radiation. It depends on the connection with National Grid. It depends on many things. But as a rule of thumb, these are the prices that we are discussing with the landowners.
Well, thank you for that presentation. I don't know, go ahead, John, sorry.
Yeah, I've got a question. I don't work for you or for Andy, but you said that New York State wants 70% by 2030.
Correct.
Who's responsible to get that 30 or that 70%? Is it Brunswick or is it National Grid? And if it
It's
is
the state of
National
New York.
Grid, shouldn't they build more substations where it's feasible to put solar farms?
It's not National Grid. It's the state of New York which has this mandate, and it's inviting all the developers, the sponsors, to try to get that goal. It is not a private company. It is not National Grid. It's the state of New York. It's the state of New York. This is my personal comment. And I've been working prior to creating my own company for large multinational companies. And these large multinational companies, usually to take decisions, it's complicated because you have to pass through different boards or members or levels. And therefore, in a situation like this, that you have to negotiate with the landowner, you have to deal with the utility, you have to explain this to the town. Companies of the size of National Grid, usually they are not competitive. Competitive in the sense that, hey, landowner, wait one year that I have to go to the board, I have to get the approval if I can pay you $1,000 or I can pay you $900. The landowner is saying, okay, goodbye. I have somebody who wants to buy this land for me, for agriculture or for whatever. So you need agile companies in this market.
So if New York doesn't meet that goal, who's going to pay a price?
Nobody.
Maybe this is a question from all the members of the board. My experience is that what I have seen, not only in US, what I've seen in other countries, usually the country or the state makes an assessment, okay, if I incentivize the market with this incentive, making some, whatever, a feed-in tariff, or making the legislation easier, how much capital, how much sponsors from the world I will receive? And it's a rule of thumb. And sometimes you will see that the initial incentives are very low, and then the state or the government has to increase. Usually it's vice versa. It's hike, and then they are reducing. Hike to initially attract many people willing to do this, and then, okay, now I have enough, now I will try to make it more competitive. I don't know how familiar you are with the megawatt blocks from NYSERDA. Probably you have heard from other solar developers, please, I need the town approval, because this way my project qualifies for the next block. Okay, maybe it's familiar this for you? This a request from one of the developers. I mean, not from the zoning board, from the planning board. I mean, we need the approval to show NYSERDA that, hey, the town has approved. So NYSERDA defines some what they call megawatt blocks. Now there is an ongoing 800 megawatt block in the region of National Grid. Okay, and it's first in, first take the capacity, which is a competitive process. It's good, it's good. Okay, how can I apply? Hey, I have Brunswick at Seekaway. NYSERDA, please, no. Show me that you have paid 25% to National Grid. Yes, I can prove that. Show me that you have the approval from the town. If you don't have the approval from the town authorizing this project, you cannot be within this NYSERDA list. That's why applicants try to urge with the application and to try to provide as soon as possible the information to the town, to the planning board, to get the approval from the planning board. So usually, I don't know if this helps with the question or this is something.
I don't see us meeting that goal. I mean, the states want to push, like to John's point, the states push the 70% goal that's unattainable because they don't want to assist NYSERDA or National Grid, or I'm sorry, National Grid or NYSEG to be able to upgrade the infrastructure.
Well, I mean,
or we're forced to cramming that. This is our point. We're forced to cram all these systems into locations now versus wait, and
Where they're not
that's
supposed to go.
where we may not want them. That's what
That's
we're
a very
trying to
good
balance here.
No, correct. That's a very good reflection. And here there are two changes on the model. One is the renewable percentage. Okay, this is evident. But there is a second one. The second one is that up to now, since the 1960s, 1970s, the energy model of a state of a country was centralized substations, centralized power stations. Here in New York, where do you have the power? You have the power in North Country with these nuclear power plants. Okay, fantastic. But does it make sense to have centralized power, or does it make more sense to have decentralized power? This is the second model that we are moving to. No, we don't want here 5 gigawatt and now there is a problem in this transmission line. Boom, blackout in half of the state. No, let's make distribution decentralized substation. So these are the two models that not only in US, not only in New York, from the 1970s to the 2020, everybody's evolving into this direction. Then in this new model, it's not NYSERDA, or it's not National Grid, or it's not NYSEG, or it's not Con Edison, the ones who has to build this distributed generation. Yes, it could be done, but again, then this is the discussion, public or private. Well, I mean, probably, I will not enter in what is best, but probably with this distribution generation, it's more efficient to use private capital to try to create this new mesh, create this new distribution scheme. By the way, Mr. Dave Brennan, which is our attorney, he wanted to attend today. He's sick, and he apologized. He will be here in the next planning board, zoning board, but for today he apologized because he's sick. It's not COVID. He's fine. He's fine.
Good.
Good. Yes. Yes. Now we have forgotten that there is still the common flu, but it exists. It exists. Yes.
I have a question regarding Exhibit C. You have a lot of photos, simulations of street view, and I'm curious to see what the simulations would look like from around. Not so much aerial, because of the people that the locations in the front, rear, left, and right. How is that going to be impacted from, for instance, from view from the country club, from the other locations as well?
Well, very interesting question. Yes. First, this is a supplement. So this is a visual supplement because Mr. LaBerge asked specifically from this road, what would be the impact? And then we have produced it in the past, a visual impact, and we have provided that visual impact from the vicinity. This is purely a supplement. But in any case, we have been in contact with the country club, and they're very friendly, and they like this project. It has been them who has told me, impossible. We will not see your solar farm. Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. We have been in contact as well with Mr. George O'Connor. Mr. George O'Connor is a person who is living inside. He has a small portion. He has a small parcel inside the Brunswick solar farm. It is not represented here, but it exists. It exists one parcel. He has been very supportive. He's an old gentleman. I think that he's 82. He has been very supportive to this project, based on that he wants some setbacks, some reasonable setbacks. So, but again, I mean, if you want, very open to provide more information on the visual impact from different angles, from different locations, or even a large topographical map. Every town has different specificities. Every town has, no, I want an aerial. No, I don't want an aerial. I want a street view. No, I want, so we are flexible and we are very open to provide you more information.
Is the person that resides in that home, is that the property owner of this property?
Mr. George O'Connor, Mr. George O'Connor.
Oh, no, I was done. I was done.
So I appreciate the information that you've given to us and allowing us the time to read over this. And maybe come back with some more
Our
questions.
pleasure. I mean, yes. Does it make sense that we produce another letter, another reply on the Mr. LaBerge map, or it's enough information and don't send me more papers? Whatever you prefer, whatever you prefer.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, please.
It looks like a fairly substantive response to LaBerge's initial comments. And while there was a map submitted with the feeder lines on the mapping, it probably would make sense to have a letter associated with that, kind of explaining your position for the record.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
I just need one more copy of the responses, if you could. please,
Okay.
Louis, that I handed our copy to Mr. LaBerge.
I believe this one emailed me, I'll leave this one here.
Do you have it in electronic?
Sure. I will. So,
Pardon me? I'll leave this one here, as long as I can get it electronically, that's fine.
Okay,
I will send you the digital version.
I don't believe you sent that electronically, did you? So it's,
I sent it to Wendy. And I
did?
sent,
Okay.
I mean, it was a little bit confusing because when I merged the different exhibits into one, because Exhibit A and Exhibit B, it's exactly the same environmental assessment form, then the PDF, the Adobe Acrobat is doing something wrong. So I sent a second email with all the individual exhibits.
okay.
Okay,
So I guess that would allow us then to ask any questions that we may have in our March meeting, March
Fantastic.
21st.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So if you could, yeah, so we'll meet again, the zoning board meets again March 21st, where we'll have the opportunity to have read, right, so if you could,
Good.
thank you.
Doesn't bother me. I did have this. It's just, I didn't take it to the back of
It's
the.
hidden, yeah, it's hidden with all the rest of it.
Yes, I do. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. That little interlude allowed the people watching at home to go up and use the bathroom or maybe get a snack. We're going to continue with Saxon Sign Group. This is Harbor Freight. Hello and welcome. If you could kindly present an overview of your project, please.
My name's Terry Meisner from Saxon Sign. They're looking for in the front of their sign, or building anyway, is 50 foot or 50 inches high by 22 feet, 10 inches. Channel letters that would be illuminated with a box sign below it. And then on the side of the building in the parking lot, they would like the same exact sign. They'll be facing the parking lot. And in the, up by the road, they would look at 52-inch high monument sign that would be 96 inches wide. Sign itself would be 35 inches by 96. It'll be illuminated, double-sided. And the area variance, I guess we're here for, is for the one side of the building towards the parking lot.
And then I also believe the area variance would be for the total number of signs?
Yes, they're allowed 2 signs and they're looking for a third.
Okay, great. So there'll be a sign on the front of the building, the side of the
Side of
building
the
facing the parking lot, and then
Yep.
the monument sign is the third sign.
The third sign they're counting is the parking lot sign. That's what,
Okay, got it, okay.
Yeah.
So what they went for and what I have approved is the side of the building sign, which will be facing Hoosick Street, and a monument sign. The sign which will be at the front of the building, which will be facing west into the parking lot, is the sign for the variance.
Okay, right. So that is why the application doesn't include detailed information on the monument sign, because,
The
That's a
square
lot.
footage are
Right.
well under the maximum square footage. And it's, the two issues is the third sign and the fact that it's on the side of the building and not the front of the building. Because the front of the building in effect is the, fronting street, which is the side of the building.
right, so that one sign has two issues, I guess. So one that it exists, and then one where it's
Exactly.
located. And then, just to clarify, the signs, the total number of square footage is within the
300 square foot, considerably less.
255?
Yeah, it's like 95 square feet. 95.5 square feet.
Chuck, is there an address marker on the building itself or just?
There will be on the line.
It's on the monument sign.
It should be on the bottom of the line, monument sign, a white letter.
Yeah, I saw that. I was just wondering if they could add one to the building, so that in case the monument sign gets taken out by a car or something.
Kind of like the same concept as Tractor Supply. They have one in the front and then one on the parking lot side of it. But not as big.
That would work. That doesn't increase anything for the sign, because that's considered identification or 911 number. So that's not a.
No, I'm just talking the way it's set up. They have one in
Oh,
the front and one in
The
the.
location of the
layout.
signs.
Yep.
This appears to be the same way the store up in Clifton Park on Route 9 is set up too.
Yeah.
So this is back to the line, which I like that. It's going to be covered by snow. So
Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's just, I just like to have an identifier in the building itself, because if the sign gets taken out and it's not repaired for months or something like that, or at least there's building identification for the actual address too.
Does it show where it's gonna be located in the, let's see.
Well, I think Chuck said it didn't have to be included in the signage because it would be identification, so. Oh, the monument, where it's gonna be?
Yeah, where the monument's gonna be
The monument's gonna
located.
be
you got it right there.
right here, this little square, yeah.
Which one are
See
you
it
looking
right
at?
on this corner right here.
Looking at?
I'm just gonna take a look, and I'll pass that down.
That's where the monument sign will be right here.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, right there.
Oh, did you see that, where it's gonna be located?
Kind of hard to read, but that's pointing to a monument. This block. Pointing to it.
It's an iTest.
Right there. That's.
Getting old, I can't read.
And I never
Right by there.
pass.
Drive
I should
coming
bring
in.
my magnifying glass with me.
I've got one in the office.
I
Yeah, that
well, I
one-
can't
that one
see
there's
anything.
10,000.
Yep.
Project ID, but then I can't make up.
Okay. So this application looks complete for purposes of holding a public hearing, which we will do next month, when we meet again on March 21st.
21st?
So
Okay.
I ask you to come back then. The board may have some questions for you. There'll be members of the public who'd like to comment for this application or against the application, and you'll have the opportunity to answer those in writing if that should be the case. Otherwise, we'll go from there.
Okay.
Great. If you,
6 o'clock.
well, 6:15, I believe.
I don't think there's a public hearing. You could set this one
So
for six.
Okay,
Sure.
6 o'clock. Thank you, Tricia.
Yep.
And if you have any questions between now and then, please contact Chuck and he will get those out to us.
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Have a good night.
Night. So I believe, so this is up again.
Mhm.
All right, you're up again.
Thanks again for your time. Apart from Brunswick and Seagaway, we are developing other solar projects in Capital Region, in the state of New York, and also here in the town of Brunswick. To try to summarize a little bit this project was initially planned to be on the former municipality incinerator. I appreciate very much the support from the town because that was a complicated project. It was not clear what was the path to proceed with DEC and what if it was initially in a squid or yes or not. The support from the town was really great. The problem is that by May 2021, when we presented the remedial plan to the DEC, the top management of the DEC had changed and they requested from approximately, in our calculations, $2 to $5 million for remedial actions. Of course, this $2 to $5 million, it's killing any solar projects. So since June, July, when we discussed it with DEC and DEC was firm in their position about these remedial actions, we discussed it with the same landowner, Mr. Thomas Murley, which today he cannot come today, but he will be in this Thursday planning board. Mr. Thomas Murley is the owner of the adjacent parcel to the municipality the former municipality incinerator, and he agreed that parcel is a little bit complicated because a portion of that parcel is residential, a portion of that parcel is industrial light, and a portion of that parcel is PDD. Our plan is to install on the industrial light portion this North Troy solar farm. We are not asking for an additional use variance. No. It's on industrial light on that parcel. In order to connect to National Grid feeder line, we made a consultation with National Grid. National Grid confirmed that yes, even if we are moving from the original parcel to the second parcel, we keep our rights to connect to the original place. We have at this moment paid 100% of the interconnection, so everything is done with National Grid. But we had to cross the former incinerator. We were in conversations with DEC, and DEC suggested that the best way to cross the former municipality land is on the north part of this parcel, because the most of the garbage was concentrated in the middle. So if we cross on the north, then the likelihood to find some garbage is very minimum. We discussed it again with DEC, and we proposed if it was possible to cross overhead, to cross aerial, in order not to open a trench and to have bigger impact on that former municipality. They liked the idea. So we made the plan to cross the former municipality incinerator with 3 poles, aerial, and then 4 additional poles to connect with National Grid. Back to your question, Ms. Clement, about the first project, not our project, about the CV. What we have seen usually is that 4 to 6 poles is what National Grid requests. It depends on many technical factors, voltage level, location, the protections that they already have. So me personally, I haven't seen any 2 poles only. I haven't seen in any of my applications 2 poles. It's more common 4 to 6. But I don't want to step into that conversation, that is another project, but it's quite common 4 to 6 poles. Happy days if somebody has had only 2 poles, because this is an additional cost, and our interest is to try to minimize the poles.
Yeah, we did have a 2-pole, but they decided to use ground-based switching equipment, so you didn't have your coax up in the air.
Okay.
You had them on the ground, but that's quite an expense to bear, is to have them ground mounted.
Very true, very true. In addition, not always National Grid accepts that, because we, the applicant, pay for all the equipment that we have to install, but the meter, the final 2 poles usually belongs to National Grid, because if they need to do an intervention and isolate your solar farm, they want to have quick access. So
Independent outside.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So it's a discussion usually with National Grid if we can minimize and squeeze the number of poles. But back to this project, we are asking for the relief of these 7 poles aerial, 3 to cross the former municipality incinerator, plus 4 because this is what National Grid is requesting. When we submitted this application, we had not received yet the confirmation from DEC. We have now received the confirmation that the DEC is accepting our plan. So they have put in writing that our plan, our application, which is the application to DEC, which is part of this document, has been accepted by DEC. We can provide, if necessary, the email confirming by DEC that they are accepted this.
From here doesn't look like this. From here it looks like this.
So we could say that perhaps,
No, this is another project that's
Planning
likewise
board?
pending in front of the planning board for a special use permitted site plan. The applicant was in front of the planning board. I think you're on, I think last
week,
meeting.
yes.
Yeah,
And I will be again by
This-
Thursday
this
this week.
Thursday? Okay, so on that, and that will be undergoing planning board, engineering review. And similar to what we discussed earlier for large-scale commercial solar projects, zoning law promotes coordinated review between the boards, and this may be another project where a potential joint public hearing is held, but there's still some technical review going on with the planning board on this project as well. So maybe we, again, let the planning board process move forward on
in March, yeah.
on completeness, and we'll see where we are in March.
That sound good? Thank you. Please give our regards to Mr. Dave Brennan when he feels better.
I will. Thank you very much. Thank you.
As you said, Louis, and we both agreed that the dump would be an absolutely perfect spot for that. If the state is looking for 70% and renewable stuff, you'd think the DEC would take a look at it a little harder and see if the remediation plan that they are proposing,
We wish.
fits with opening up more land because
Specifically for this
Maybe
municipality,
they'll look
for
at it
municipality.
later
Insulate.
on
But the brown line
when
is
they're
solar
trying to
is perfect.
squeeze out the
You're
number.
not disturbing the property. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
We wish. We will see. I mean,
one application I'm really interested in is the one that the floating solar farm on the Gahoes Reservoir. That one I'm really interested in seeing, and the performance in the winter.
well, I mean, there is a lot of controversy on this topic. I mean, one person who has a lot of influence for many reasons is this Elon Musk, very well known, very popular in Twitter. And you can find an interview with Elon Musk, I think by 2014. He was in a summit conference for oil and gas. And of course, the question from the interviewer was, Mr. Elon Musk, we are supporting renewable energies. What are you doing here? And his answer was that, look, if I have a button and pushing this button, I could stop today all the oil and gas, all the coal. I will not push this button. Wow, everybody was surprised, no? No, and it's true. We need a mix and we need a transition. Maybe in 2050, maybe in 200, in the 22nd century, it will come the day that all the energy will be renewable. But we cannot push too much the pedal because we need a soft transition. We need a soft movement. This 70% will be feasible by 2030. I don't know. I don't have a ball, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
We do these, smooth transition. Your technology only works when the sun shines.
That's true, but the batteries are coming. I mean, you're true. Absolutely, you're correct. And that's why, as per today, we need this mix of nuclear, gas. I mean, a nuclear power plant, let's say a conventional nuclear power plant, 1 gigawatt, it's like boom, 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 always the same speed. You cannot ask, if you check what is the consumption in a day, you will see what is called a DAC curve, because they call it a DAC, because in the morning there is a peak, then in the afternoon, and then a peak again in the evening. you have only nuclear power plants, or you waste a lot of energy to cover all the consumption, or there are some parts of the day that you have blackouts. So you need at this moment nuclear power plants. You need fast reaction like gas power plants to cover these peak shavings, to cover the maximum consumption. And then you need this mixture to decarbonize, to get into the clean energy. It will come that the batteries, I think that it was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, 1 megawatt of battery was $1 million. Now Elon Musk is saying that it will cost $80,000. It's a big push from the electrical vehicle to reduce the prices of the batteries. If this is true, in 5, 6, 7 years, from $1 million to $80,000, economically it will make sense. Then we will combine solar plus wind plus batteries. But again, this will not happen tomorrow. This will not happen 2025, and maybe it will happen 2040, 2050. Who knows?
But the providers of the cogen plants, they're gonna operate at their efficiencies, whether they're shutting power into the ground or not. They're gonna operate their system at their efficiencies.
Very true. It's pushing everybody. It's pushing everybody to go into a more efficient way. Yes, very true.
Because if you start turning them down, then you start bringing up the NOx. And, you can't have that because of the EPA. So.
Do you want this on March 21 for
Or you'd
further
like to move it?
discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Good night.
Isn't China neutral lithium for the batteries? Oh, let's just.
Are there any other new issues for tonight's meeting?
Superpower.
Then I accept a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I will second that.
I'll take that. I didn't say it, but I'll take it. As a second. I said it first. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Sorry.
Whatever.